Ladies and gentlemen, it is February 6th, 2018. Welcome to the ProPokeBowl Season 4 pre-draft pool analysis stream. I don't know how to introduce this. My name is ProPokeBowl. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Tonight will not be anything particularly special. We are just going to be going over the pools, looking at certain things, talking about what you need to know when you're coming into the draft format and how we're actually going to be running everything. So you have all the information in case there are any questions. This is your last night to be able to do this. So we can have a nice, smooth show tomorrow. Of course, nothing will be equal. We have a little more professionalism tomorrow. Nothing is officially the show-ish type thing yet until the 21st, but we're going to be going from there. So let's get right into it. I'm going to be joined by Celebrity Edition champion Sweet D in just a few moments. For now, though, let's talk about what's going to be going on. So we have Pool 1 and Pool 2. Every participant that is in the tournament has been given both Pool 1 and Pool 2. You all are probably staring at it for a week. I've been hearing a lot of coaches have been talking about, building multiple teams, a lot of multiple teams, but basically you're all pretty much already onto the same page as looking at the Pokemon. So by now, hopefully, or even by tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time is when we start, we will be saying a few things beforehand. So you want to show up for 8 just in case the things that I say go really quickly. I do plan to be on time, so do not worry about that. I only ask that you try your best to. You should by now have looked at the pools, or at least by tomorrow before the stream starts, you should have looked at the pools, and you should be looking at the banning and picking process. So let me actually just grab that. That's the one thing I did not grab. Let me get that really quickly. I don't think you're going to gain a lot of credit, gamer, by calling it banter in a Canadian stream. Just saying. Alright, let's grab this all up. Sorry, my friend is suffering in Team League. Okay, so let's pull up these rules really quickly here. Let's go quickly over what you need to know for tomorrow, which is specifically the drafting process. We did talk about it at a show last week, but let's go over it one more time so it is as smooth as friggin' possible. So, the drafting process, the way that's going to be going is you will be drafting an official team of 12 throughout the entire season. You'll be stuck with these 12 Pokemon unless you trade them away, and you go from there. So, you'll be choosing 6 from Pool 1, then we move on to Pool 2. The choosing and picking order will be as such. You will all ban. We will randomize the order tomorrow. Once we have randomized the order, let's see if I can get my face going here. Once we randomize the order, we will then proceed to give you 10 to 15 minutes. We will probably do 15 minutes. We'll just standardize it to 15 minutes. You'll be given 15 minutes to organize your notes because you guys probably have the idea of what you want to first pick now and ban first and all this other stuff, but you don't know what order you're going to be going until tomorrow night on stream. So, I will give you the 15 minutes to take your time, figure out whatever you want to do, and then we start the process. You will ban 1, you will pick 3 according to the rules that are listed in the drafting and banning tables here. Then you will ban another one after that. There'll be your 2 bans for the pool, and then you pick your final 3 for the pool for a total of 6. We will then re-randomize the order, give you another 15 minutes to take a look at Pool 2, organize all your notes, and then do the exact same thing. 1 ban, 3 picks, 1 ban, 3 picks. You will have your 12. You will be set to go from there. Please keep in mind as you are drafting that you are not allowed to make any trades before week 1. You must wait at least 1 week. This is to prevent people from picking up certain Pokemon, hoping that those will end up, and then start making a trade that'll catch people off guard. The draft is super important week 1. Do not try and make a trade after making a mistake. We've always emphasized draft is the most important thing. It will be remaining as so until at least after week 1. So, don't worry, Ivan, you're in the same pool as me. I haven't even looked at the pool. I took 8 minutes. I know some of the Pokemon in there, but yeah. We're gonna work through this together. That's why Diego's gonna carry me tonight. We're gonna do this together. So, just to review it, your odd number picks will influence your even number picks. So pick 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11 will be impacting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Alright? If you pick P, U, N, U, R, U, or O, U, you will follow this list. You will have this list open with you so you don't get lost, but of course I will be prompting you. When you are drafting or when you are banning, this will all be done in Twitch chat with the @ProPokeNoob symbol next to your Pokemon, okay? We will not be doing voice, the reason being that voice was fine, but I like to keep a record of it written so that in case I do make a mistake, it's much faster for me to scroll up and stuff like that instead of having to drag people in and out of the call nonstop and things like that. This is supposed to be a quick thing, so, and I mean, by quick, I mean an hour and a half to 2 hours, so make sure you are in chat, you are to have the Twitch open, you are to have me on audio so you can hear when I call your name. I will only be calling it with voice, I will not be typing it out and stuff like that. You will type with the @ProPokeNoob so that it connects to me and stuff like that, and I'll see it instantly and it'll highlight itself, okay? That's how you'll be picking your Pokemon. Once you put that Pokemon down, it is official. Do not screw up, or you will have a lot of explaining to do. We're going to be doing this really, really, really fast-ish type of thing, because we have 10 people to go through. So, make sure you make your decisions distinctly. There is no particular time limit. I would try and keep it under 2 minutes if you can. It's not that difficult to look through a list that you probably have or have not. Just look through the Pokemon, just try and make the best educated guess that you can if you're stuck on what Pokemon to pick up. But again, this is why you try and do a tiny bit of prep. It doesn't take that much. Honestly, like, I could look at a pool in 10 minutes and already have a decent idea of what I want. It's not going to be perfect, but yeah, pretty much, gamer. Just like that. Just like that. But yeah, like, I could look at a pool in 10 minutes and already know, like, 2 Pokemon I want to pick, and then just kind of work my way through as that's going on. You guys can do it with a half an hour and have a team of 12 ready to go, type of thing, hopefully. If not, go build a bunch of teams. I think Darkness was on the right track with just building a bunch of teams, and he knows exactly what he's going to be doing. If that man takes less than 10 seconds to answer me, I'm going to be very disappointed. So, have these open. That's all we're going to be worrying about. We're not going to talk about trades. We'll talk about that after the drafts and stuff like that, as well as the battles and things like that. Let's get into the pools, but first I want to wait for Diego. I want to see his input in on this. Hurry up, Diego, please. I know he's washing the dishes. Hi. Wait, Diego wants to say hi. Run, 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 run. It's okay. Oh, no! Poor Diego, he missed it. My friend is crying right now. Does anybody have any questions about the draft right now? Anyone have any questions before we get into the pools? We're just going to talk pools and then we're offline. That's it. Come on, Diego. I'm on time. Where's Diego? Can you draft? No. Unless you actually roll into it. If you roll first, everyone's going to call rigged. You know that, right, Mitch? Now that you've said that, it's going to happen. Now, there are not everybody had to show up tonight. This will all be archived for you guys to be able to see it, so this is not a required night. If you think that you're going to be okay with the pool, you don't have to stay. We're literally just talking about the Pokemon that I'm watching for and basically giving you a history of what people have been doing generally with their drafting processes and what you can do to kind of do it. Of course, one, I'm not going to reveal anything that I would be particularly doing. I'm just going to be giving you an eyes and kind of making you aware of what certain Pokemon can do. So this is not a kind of solution of, you know, oh, hey, you know, I know Mimikyu gets this and it's really good in this meta because this and this and this. No, no. It's going to be like, this is what this Pokemon can do, and that's why I'm pointing it out. It has no relation to whether or not it'll be good in the tier, or it'll be good amongst the OUs, right? I'm not going to say whether or not it's going to be the Pokemon to pick, mainly because I haven't taken enough time to look at it, but also because I want to see what you guys come up with. Usually the most exciting part of the ProPokeBowl is actually watching different processes. I'm not kidding you, there are 10 different strategies. Everybody has a different way of drafting, and it's super neat, because not everybody's going for the win per se. They might be going for the MVP award again, or something like that. So they might be going for the super creative team, try and grab the player's attention, or grab the viewer's attention, or they have a particular playstyle they want to play. For example, Doodle's a very stall player, Mitchie is a slightly aggressive player, Diego's a balanced player, etc., stuff like that. Darkness is, like, unpredictable because he can build apparently everything. Will snacks and beverages be provided, Nyctophile? No. It wasn't successful. Are there any rules for spectators? That's actually a very good question, Nyctophile. So I will tell you this. There are no particular rules for you guys. The only thing that I ask is that you do not call the game for the participants. Like, you don't go for this or go for that, right? You can be in the... we will drop the link to the battle so you guys can watch it live, because we are going to try a stream delay this time just to see how that goes, which is why we're going to be super... why we're going to be super, anal about putting the timer on. So, you can spectate live, cheer them on, do not hate on anyone's play. We laugh together, we celebrate together, we mourn together of a team losing. Try not to tilt others, don't tilt yourself, don't be like, oh my god, what is he doing, right? Like, keep it chill. You also have access to the Twitch, or to the Streamlabs extension, which is my face with your Nubits in there. You can use the Nubits to cheer on players and teams and stuff like that. So make sure you put that to full use if you are going to be coming and watching. Yeah, just don't call the game for each other. Like, if you're joking around, it's fine, but don't sit in there and berate players for whatever they're doing. All right, this is a very fun tournament. Is there anything else I could say about spectating? All the games, if you miss them, they will be archived so anyone can grab them. I make them public at the bottom of the channel. I'll put them up week by week after the battle nights, and you guys can go click and watch them in the archives of Showdown. Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I've never actually had anyone ask about the spectators. It was mostly just because the people who were spectating were the other players. So, now if you're a battler and you don't if the chat throws you off, I think there is a way for you to mute chatters and spectators for yourself. I wouldn't ignore them. Please do not kick out spectators, but you can mute them. Let me see if I can find it here. If I just get into a random battle, and once again, tank MMR and some... let's see... So I just go into a battle. Battle options. Yeah, if you go to battle options, you can ignore spectators and opponents, and you can also ignore nicknames. So if anything is offending you, that's actually much more advanced than it used to be. So you can actually click on the battle options at the top right of the battle screen, and you can ignore all of that stuff you don't want to hear. And yes, you must turn on the timer. Your battle does not start officially until you have turned on the timer. Vote Wobbuffet. Can you bet Nubits? So I've thought about it, Nyctophile, because technically, according to Twitch terms of services, it's not netting you real money. However, I don't like the idea of... It's a casual tournament, right? I call it semi-competitive because it's fun. It's whatever anyone wants to do in a tournament, whether they want to build a really fun team and trolley team, or you... whether you want to build a really trolly team, or if you want to go try hard and try and actually win the whole ProPokeBowl, it doesn't matter. It's all about just celebrating playing the tournament and stuff. It's all about the JK holding hands and having fun type of shit. But, putting Nubits on the line type of thing, one, is extra for me, and also, I mean, I don't want to condone gambling. Plus, if you're not over 18, I can't tell. You could be lying to me. So, I'm kind of a responsible adult like that. What the hell? Diego's later than me? That's just wrong. Okay, Diego, jump into a call. I'll move you into the noob HQ. He's not banned from this room. Oh, it's okay, Nick the File. It's no big deal.
Hello.
Would you like to unban Mitchie?
I did.
Okay. That was very aggressive of you.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to wash dishes.
That's fine. No big deal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sweet D, also known as Dr. Diego. YouTube.com/Dr. Diego. We showed you off on my 3-year anniversary.
Really?
Yeah. We show off your Pokemon. We show off your Poke Fight Club video.
Oh my god.
It's all archived.
Alright.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I got stuck at work. I didn't get a chance to look at these draft pools extremely well. I know what's in them, but I haven't done, like, giant analyses.
I've looked through them a bit, but that's about it.
So, first of all...
Let me open them up.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Talk to the people. I need you to talk to the people about your expertise and how successful you have been in the ProPokeBowl.
About how I did it?
No, how successful you actually are. Like, this is your time to flaunt and gloat and basically make yourself sound like a
I've done 3 seasons and I've never lost a series of 2.
It's true.
I've gotten first place 2 times.
Who you have?
And second place... No, in like the regular season.
Oh, in the regular... Okay. I was
Hello?
about to say. The championships is otherwise.
So the regular season, it's very important to get a first or second because you get a bye. And you're able to kind of like scout your opponent, so that always helped. I've won one. I've won a mock ProPokeBowl. I've gotten to the finals another time, and then I lost in semifinal in my first season. Mm-hmm. So I've made top 4 at least every time, and I've made the final twice.
You've also been playing since Gen 4?
Gen 5.
5. Yeah.
Early Gen 5, yeah.
Yeah, we started around the same time, right?
And I stopped for a long time, but I only got back to it because of the ProPokeBowl, yeah.
Yeah. So the entire drafting process has gone a long way since Season 2, for sure.
Right.
Because back then we actually didn't even have banning, and we had much smaller pools. This time we've actually increased the pool by 24 pokes, which is a significant deal with the amount of Pokemon that are in each tier, to also compensate for the fact that there are a lot of Pokemon mixed up all over the place now. And the fact that you get 2 bans on top of trading and everything else. So, in Season 3, you were actually... No, the Celebrity ProPokeBowl... Celebrity came before Season 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the pilot for trades and bans. So, not much has...
We didn't do trades in Celeb. We did bans, and then we did trades last time.
We did trade Season 3, you're right. Yeah, you guys were the pilot for the banning system. So...
my bad.
What is it? No, it's no big deal. What is, like, if you were to make it very simple to explain, what is basically to you, the most effective process for approaching a ban and pick format? Because you've always gotten the team you've generally wanted, except for Season 3, which is a bit off for you, but you still got most of what you wanted.
For bans, I try not to, try and when I'm looking at the pools, I try to kind of see things that I would like to get. If I see things that are just obviously going to get banned, in my eyes, I don't even consider them just because I don't think I'll get them. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, just ban stuff that either you don't like playing against or stuff that your team doesn't do well against. And then for picking stuff, I've been playing for a long time, I think. So there's a lot of things that I know how to use. So even if something gets taken or banned, there's other stuff that I could use instead.
Mm-hmm.
So that always helps.
Yeah. And with a lot of more Pokemon being added, there are a lot of Pokemon that, for example, you have Swamperts in Pool 2, but if you wanted a water ground Pokemon, for example, you have Seismitoad in Pool 1, so you can plan around, there's a particular style that you want to go with, but let's say you don't grab the one Pokemon, there are chances for you to grab another one.
Right.
To an extent, right?
I think if people like have a plan coming in, try to have kind of like a backup. Like, let's say they want a bulky water that they really want, and it's contested, or it might be contested. Try to have like a backup, because it might get either picked or banned, or just you might not get it.
Partially the reason we give people now a week to take a look at this stuff. Some people get really into it, like Darkness and Mitchie and all those guys. Even Project's been talking quite a bit of practice, as well as a Gamer there. But yeah, it's gonna happen. Something you're gonna want, it's gonna get sniped, and then you're kind of stuck with a paddle or a creek without a paddle. That one. But yeah, it's all about having the backup plans and stuff like that. Would you say that even if you don't fully grasp the top picks in the pool, that you can still develop a team that plays to your style and at least do well?
Yeah, I think my first time drafting, it was like I didn't know how it was gonna go, and I honestly don't think my team was that good, aside from like 3 things that I was very comfortable in using: Gastrodon, Celebi, and Heatran.
Celatran with Gastro.
Heatran is obviously good, but something like Gastrodon and Celebi were a bit like lower in terms of like how good they were at that point. Yeah. But they were just comfort picks, so I was able to work with them, and I did pretty well that season. Yeah,
we did extremely well that season. You made it all the way to the semifinals.
Okay.
But yeah, because I think something that needs to be emphasized is everybody's going to look at the pool differently, and some people who are extremely experienced will be able to look at the pokes and identify the Pokemon that are going to have very few checks and counters to them and are just going to basically overall be the top priority. But just because that's happening with some players doesn't mean that you can't pick up, let's say you're comfortable with playing with a Pokemon that you might think might be a little bit in the lower priority. For example, something like Chansey, who many people would, kind of consider to be that stall Pokemon, or you need something to go really well with Chansey. If you know how to play with it versus, just picking the meta of the Tapus and stuff like that, then you can still go for it if you plan to make it work with the comp that you're aiming to make.
Yeah, like something being really good in the metagame won't necessarily translate onto the ProPokeBowl just because it's a different format, different it's just different teams. So you also need to keep in mind that your opponents are going to know your team beforehand. So if you get something like Volcarona, which is really strong in the metagame, and that's your OU pick, you're most likely going to be bringing it every time to battle. And you can be guaranteed that your opponent is going to prepare for it. So it won't be as strong as, let's say, just bringing it into like a standard OU match, I think.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And I think, too, there are a couple of examples of over time where it's not like the draft looks really, really strong, but it came down to other factors, like Daggerdrome, right? He always builds around weather because that's what he really likes to play with. He likes to play the weather-based comps. But, at the time, weather was very strong back in Season 1, but, now as the meta has evolved and now we're in Gen 7 and weather is still good, but not like, every team has a Politoed versus a Tyranitar. It's gotten to the point where that type of strategy tends to fall off. Another example being one player that we hope would come back, Chaos Infinity, right? His team was like a super aggressive but very well built team, and any aggro player would want to pick up his comp and just go with it and play it out in the ProPokeBowl themselves. It came down to the play itself, where the teams were kind of built to kind of manage it, but more so it also came down to the fact that, he wasn't as used to the 7th gen metagame, so as a result, or 6th gen metagame, sorry. So as a result, it just didn't play out the way that he wanted to play it out. So there are ways for you to build really strong drafts, and just because someone picks up a really strong core doesn't mean that you can't make your core work to your effectiveness, right? Now, having said that, if you bring a Sudowoodo and the other guy brings a Landorus T, yeah, I mean, there are exceptions to the rule where you're going, there's only so much you can push that envelope, but, you know, in the end, is my chat broken? I think my chat's broken.
I think it might just be dead. Mine
okay, it might be dead.
Frozen too. Yeah.
Okay, either way. But yeah, like, there's no pressure with, you know, you see the top. I mean, obviously, if you really, really, really want to do well, you're going to go for the top Pokemon. You got Greninja, you've got the Tapu Lele, you know, you want those Pokemon, but it's not the end of the world, even if someone scooped up the next top tier, if you're not going to assume getting that Pokemon, right? So, the best thing you can do is play to your style. The most successful people in the Pro Pokeball, both for having fun and for actually doing well in the standings, have been people who have picked up Pokemon to their playstyles, right? And then it comes down to the battling after that. If you practice, then it will add up. But the one thing that really separates the top 6 from the bottom is knowing how your playstyle will interact with your opponent, right? This is why you watch the players battle, right? If you're going to bring an aggressive team against someone who plays balance or stall, you need to know how to make your strategy work against it. And the top players can tell you, like Diego, he can tell you, you have to build in a certain way to answer it. Or you just recognize that all of a sudden your comp just has, you know, an unanswerable sweeper, and you bring it, right? You have to be able to recognize that once you have your team of 12. And that generally comes out after the draft. Going into the draft, you'll have a good idea for most likely a defensive core, and then your offense will start to synergize as you build that. Most times people, I think, actually pick up the sweeper. Usually I see, like, someone picks up their main primary pivot OU poke, or, like, their pivot UU, and then try and build a little bit of a defensive core, and then try and build a support Pokemon to make that work, right? Scrubbington kind of did that with the Alakazam and the Conkeldurr and things like that.
Yeah.
So, that's one way of approaching it.
I think experience comes down. This is where I think, like, the newer players are a bit of a disadvantage, because experienced players can kind of adapt throughout the draft if something gets banned or something gets picked, and they're picking something really, really defensively, and they're forced to, like, pick more offensive things. They can sort of adapt and sort of kind of, like, patch holes with, like, the stuff that they're used to playing with, just because they're experienced and they've used those things. And a newer player might not be able to patch those holes as easily, might get something that they didn't want, or just something that they might not be just comfortable on.
Yeah, and most times I think a trap that most people fall into is when you pick a team of 12, you feel like every Pokemon's going to be useful. On average, the top 6 people have used, let me just see here, last season was Scrubbington, Sweet D, Inert Fury, and Mitchie W in the semis and finals, right? If I look at their usage, the average number of Pokemon on the team that were used, obviously inflated by, you know, just bringing it for the sake of bringing it, aka Mitch and Diego, the average that you see of being used prevalently is about 7 to 8. So other Pokemon are picked up for very specific situations, or just like a very particular, like, this Pokemon has this one need. For example, like Miltank, it has Sap Sipper. It actually helped Inert Fury a couple of games against the Grass Sphere. I can't remember who it was, but he brought it specifically because it was Sap Sipper, right? But Miltank is never gonna take the role that Gligar or Rhydon could have accomplished for him, right? It wasn't his intention to try and switch it up and catch people off guard. So most times you'll find that core of 6 to 8 Pokemon that you're gonna want to switch between, and you'll have success with that. Obviously, you can bring the other to test them out if you already know that week you're just, you know, you're up against someone really top end. You go, well, I might as well see what this Pokemon could do in a battle. But, you know, most of the time, you won't see that many. I think it was Superior, Ivan, you're right. I think it was for other Mitch's Superior. But most times you'll see there is a specific core, and then Pokemon will kind of pivot around it if there are any substitutions between Game 1 and 2, and then when you find them in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think that when You bring up a good point. When people are picking their teams, they should aim to pick things that do different things.
Mm-hmm.
Because if, let's say you get 4 physical tanks, you can only bring 6 things each week.
Yeah.
Like at once. So you're not going to have 4 things to do the same thing. Yeah. I made that mistake last time where I had too many like physical walls and I didn't end up using them.
Yeah.
I did fine overall, but I do regret like doing that. And instead I could have gotten like something that was a sweeper. Just because something looks strong there doesn't necessarily mean that it'll fit your team.
Yeah. And even so, it was even more punishing in Season 1 and 2 when you didn't have trades to do between a trade pool, and now in Season 4 we have not only trades with a pool, but you have trades between players, which is now this is like the pilot for trading between players. What do you are you looking forward to this, and how would you use it if you are?
It's the trades?
Between players. Because we know the trade pool has been successful for people like Sparkington. How do you think the trading between players could go?
I think it's going to be pretty balanced. I know you had some doubts about it being maybe unbalanced, but nobody's going to give their best thing to somebody else if they know they're like a top player, for example.
Yeah.
And even if they do, they're probably going to get something just as good, if not better, for their team.
Yeah.
In return. So unless you just have no idea what you're doing and you think something is good and it just isn't, then I see no way for it to be unbalanced, and I think it'll like bring up some good things in the tournament.
Yeah, and I think also I mean when I thought about it, because when you guys explained it and when other Mitch brought it up I think was it Mitchy or was it other Mitch? I think he brought up
other Mitch. I think
it was other Mitch.
Tyler, I think.
Tyler agreed with it, but he was also more on the fence where I was, where originally my concerns were not just feeding between like the top players giving each other the counters and stuff like that, but it was always, the focus was on the draft. But then I also realized, as much as there could be... Did you? Was it you, Mitchie? Really? Either way.
Yeah, that's him.
No credit. But what I realized is part of the trading is, first of all, it's double consent, right? Everybody has to agree to it, so it's not actually imbalanced in any way. But also the fact that when the rule was proposed that they can't trade that Pokemon up anymore, it's locked to their team. One, it makes them actually make... It's a pretty big risk, to be honest, because you can have a simple oversight of handing over a Pokemon, and all of a sudden that Pokemon is the thing carrying them up the ranks. And then, as much as you might be like, oh, well, if I trade this away, I still have this Pokemon to answer if I face this person, it could lead to other... Like, they can't trade it up anyways, but there could be other synergies they find with other Pokemon in the trade pool, with another coach. That all of a sudden they could be picking up a core that you have overlooked. And it actually makes for a little bit of, not a rivalry, but it kind of makes kind of a competitive environment where you're actually sort of having to think about, am I actually risking buffing up this team in exchange for buffing my team up, and what's the variance, right? How much is it going to help me versus help my opponent? If it's going to be equal, it's probably worth it. But if it's going to end up being where he can make a trade with the pool while holding this Pokemon, all of a sudden it becomes more complex like that. So I really like that idea. And again, it still doesn't help anyone. You still have to draft a good team to begin with, because if you don't draft anything good that people want, nobody's going to trade with you either. So you got to have the collateral of what other players would want if you plan to use it as leverage type of thing, right? You could easily pick up a Pokemon, never use it, and use it as leverage to someone who is obsessed with that Pokemon, right? That's where actually sniping is going to become very interesting, because then people might be like, I really want that Venusaur, and then all of a sudden they're like, I will trade you my top Pokemon to do it. So I think it'll lead to some very interesting interactions with people. So it should be cool.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, you got the pools?
I do.
You got the pools. All right, let's get into it, guys. So we're not revealing anyone's strats in any way. We're not talking about what would be necessarily top pick. I want to keep this as generic as possible. So talking about some of the top Pokemon to keep an eye out for. Not overall, but kind of in the pool itself and stuff like that. And it's funny because this is actually really exciting in terms of the pools because we have a lot new Pokemon in this. There are a lot of Pokemon we have not seen in the ProPokeBowl yet, a lot that are not returning. T-Tar and Latios being one of those.
True, yeah. Tyrantar's not in it this time.
There's no Latios, there's no T-Tar. There are a couple of other cores that have been missing as well, but let's talk about pool number 1 here first. It's kind of like the OU is going to be banned because there are a lot of threats up there that I'm sure many people don't want to let through. Stuff like Greninja, Tapu Lele, Heatran, Zygarde, Weavile. These Pokemon have shown enormous success both in the OU metagame as well as just overall as a Pokemon. It's just as a Pokemon in general. You know, if anyone's watched your battles, Hawlucha could be a threat with the right combination. It takes a little bit more work, but you can still make it work like that. But I do feel like this is very top-heavy with its strength, which is opposite to Draft 2, for with a few exceptions, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know how general you want me to be, I guess.
I mean, like, don't reveal anyone's strats. Just talk about, like, if you're looking at this pool, what are you keeping an eye out for? And even thinking about the grand scheme of things if you want. Like, you know, how would it just...
I'd say RU, just right off the bat, I can see that RU isn't that strong. Mm-hmm. At least for pool 1.
Yeah.
I think there are some things in PU or NU that are stronger than some things in RU. In a tournament like this. It
is interesting to note that we were supposed to have 11 people. With 11 people, we actually would have officially drafted every single RU Pokemon in Smogon. But because we dropped down to 10, there were, I think, 4 that were eliminated. So you're staring at about 95 or 96% of the RU metagame. And I do agree that most of the good RU metagame got shoved to pool 2.
Oh, yeah, most of it, if not all of it.
Yeah, not all of it, but...
I'd say PU and NU, just because it's the worst, I guess the worst tier, doesn't necessarily mean that there's not some better things in there than there is in RU.
Yeah.
There's some really good things in PU for pool 1.
There are a couple of things we can point out. For any type of aggressive team, Frostlass. I think I remember the I remember Smeargle on Scrubbington's team being used as kind of like that setup Pokken, and I don't know, the days of suicide leads are kind of not necessarily. Are they even that standard anymore? Probably not. I don't see them very often of a suicide lead. It's mostly saturated with actual walls that do the same things. But Frostlass is one of those very, very good offensive suicide leads. And you have to think not just in terms of, oh, the OU metagame. No, this is OU mixed. If you're battling someone with 12 OUs, you've cheated. So, yeah, they could have a draft of 6 OU Pokemon, but it's not going to look like the actual OU metagame per se, right? Unless you've really let that go. But someone like Frostlass offers that type of aggressive suicide lead. Slowking has always been a phenomenal Pokemon as an Assault Vester, or just, you know, having the Regenerate Core, being able to go offensive with Trick Rooms, that stuff, and going with that. Have a good night, Nick Defile. Other things to point out in there, we've seen Aromatisse used a little bit. It did some good things. It's a little bit easy to set up on, but it does have the ability that stops it from being taunted. So it always gets its stuff up no matter what. It can be used in a Trick Room setting type of thing. Excelgor, we saw Nathan using its Scarf Map Final Gambit. He loves that thing, but it's another example of... what's it called? It's another example of just one of those offensive kind of lead sort of things. And just as a final reminder, everybody, yes, we know Ambipom got moved to UU. The drafts do not change as of when I've handed them out. Nor would I suggest draft... It got moved to UU.
Really?
Yeah. Fucking Joey. He went on a crusade to move it up to UU, and he made it.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Uh-huh. Either way, there are a few Pokemon that stand out, and I mean, even if you think back to older generations or older metagames, these Pokemon have really, really shifted. One that always kills me is Virizion. Like, it's an NU pivot. It's not super broken, but it's an NU pivot. That Pokemon is solid. It's just a solid Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's just by usage, Mitchie. Welcome to Smogon. But yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
I had it on my team for the Celeb Edition, so yeah, I know how strong that thing is.
It's just got good typing. It's got Breloom-like typing, very good offensively. It can do a couple of different things. It can go both. It's mixed, really. It can go mixed. It can go physical. It can go special, stuff like that. Yeah, the OU. I mean, I expect, at least in the draft pool 1 here, a lot of these things are not going to be making it through. I know for a fact from the mock ProPokeballs, Toxapex is hated on. Greninja's going to be hated on. Lele's going to be hated on. Whoever's going first is going to try and scoop up something like a Clefable, probably something like a Zygarde. You may not see a Weavile in there, but I mean, it's hard to overlook. It's one of those just Pokemon that we've seen time and time again clean up for people's teams. We've seen Tangrowth to great effect back on Ivan's team back in Season 2, right? No one's going to ever forget the Chlorophyll Ancient Power move on Mega Charizard Y, which was really specific, but it worked. But it's just a solid Pokemon when used in its actual nature as well. But I do expect a lot of the OU being hit, which might open up to a lot of strong UU picks.
Yeah, again, I also think Pool 2 got the better of the OU picks.
Yeah.
Aside from the select few, but yeah, you're right. Some people might just choose to take UU, but that would leave them to, I don't know, take RU, which isn't that good either. So I think Pool 1 is going to be really interesting, and to see what people are going to pick.
Yeah. Just
because Pool 2 is just a lot better for a lot of pools. So that's why I was saying PU and NU is a lot better than Pool 1. Pool
there's
2.
There's Cinccino down there. There's Sigilyph down there. Even Vivillon's not like the worst thing in the world. And plus, something that is kind of funny is weather is, we still talk about weather in case anyone's interested. There is an NU Sun user in the form of Torkoal that just recently got moved down there. If for some reason you want to play Sun, you have it in access to NU if someone's looking to challenge themselves with that, right? There's a lot of, like, Pyroar is fairly new into this now. We haven't seen that in a while. Basculin's got adaptability. Drampa's not the worst thing in the world. Jellicent's not the worst thing in the world. Ludicolo can be set up there with the Pelipper. Like, there's what I think is going to happen is, in my head, I think a lot of OU is going to get banned, and you're right. People are going to be forced to pick these crappy RU mixes, or they're going to go to the NU, and that might clean out really quickly because they're going to be going for the strong UU stuff, right? I instantly see Metagross, Alolan Muck, Mega Pidgeot is accessible in UU, right? There's a lot of strong Pokemon. Togekiss, Infernape, like there's a lot of these strong picks that are going to force people to kind of have that weaker end. So usually you see people trying to clean up their draft in Pool 2. I think people are going to have to clean up their draft in Pool 2, and they're going to start off kind of with maybe one or two threats that are going to end up becoming part of the main team. Because there's not much here for them to actually take and make ridiculous. There is access to Sticky Web in the form of Galvantula. I believe Shuckle is Pool 2? Yeah, Shuckle's Pool 2. But you have Galvantula. You have Ariados. Stuff like that. But yeah, I do agree. I do think that Pool 1 definitely will... It's going to set a different tone for this draft, because usually you're trying to scoop up as much as you can and then kind of finish it off in Pool 2, but I don't think there's enough here.
Usually it's a lot more even.
Yeah,
usually it's a lot more even, so you get a good portion of your team, and then you kind of build around it. And now I feel like you're going to get, I was saying you get stuff to patch holes in your team. You're going to have to predict a little and pick stuff for Pool 1 that you think are going to like patch holes or support your team for whatever you get in Pool 2, which is a little weird. Yeah. Usually you do it the other way around. So here you're going to have to kind of like predict a little and hope you get some things that you want.
Now the worst thing about this is no one knows their pick order for Pool 2 until Pool 1 is done. So this is going to be like, if you want a Pokemon in Pool 2, you're going to have to pray to God that you've actually built it, which might make people actually build kind of more generalist synergies, as opposed to, I'm going to take the Hippo to support the Excadrill, or which I think are both... Nope, Hippo's here and then Excadrill's Pool 2. Or you're going to have to pick if you're going to want to use some kind of good defensive core with a Lomomola in Pool 2, right? You're going to have to try and think, like, am I going to get that Pokemon? If people see me pick it up in Pool 1, is it going to be targeted in Pool 2? I bet you that the higher-end players can specifically target, right? A Regenerator course can get hit, which is not even that strong a move. This is missing now. But... yeah, it's going to be very strange because usually, again, because you've seen both pools now, there's no catching people off guard. You will show weakness in your draft, and I think there is fantastic opportunity to snipe and ban to actually weaken a lot of people here. Now, do you think it'll be to the level of Dagger, Season 1, where the man grabs a God comp just because he's able to go first? Do you think going first here is actually going to be very good because of such a weak Pool 1? And then once you go to Pool 2, if you go first, you basically pick up the answer.
I think just because Pool 1 isn't that strong, people will be able to... like, being first won't matter that much, I think. So going second kind of, like, gives you... or, like, near the end kind of, like, lets you see what people are trying to pick so you can prepare for Pool 2, I think.
Yeah, I actually agree. I'm actually thinking that you want to go later in Pool 1 because you're literally having to choose, okay, what's he going for, what's she going for, what can I go for, because in the end it's going to be a toss-up to try and grab the best in Pool 2. So yeah, I think actually Pool 1 people will be happy to see what's being picked up and don't have to worry about too much of losing power because, well, either the power is going to be banned because people are afraid of it, or the power is waiting for you on the other side. There are a lot of...
and I agree with... Go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I agree with what you said about how you shouldn't try to, like, get a Hippowdon and then Excadrill, something that just heavily relies on the other thing.
Yeah.
You should try and get something like, just think of a core, Fire, Water, Grass, something basic. You could get a Water type. Maybe you don't get that. Maybe you don't get the one you wanted, but you have a backup, and it doesn't matter just because it's still a Water type. Something like that you can kind of prepare for, or just don't assume you're going to get something in Pool 2, or just heavily rely on something in Pool 2, because you might not get it.
Yeah. Now, here's my question, right? So, for example, just to give people an example he's talking about, something like Empoleon, because of its typing, or Quagsire, because of its typing, might be something that's good enough to set up a defensive or an offensive core. Like, if you want to think of more offensive, something like Infernape. So, it has enough going for it on its own that it can work with other pokes. That's what Sweet D's talking about over here, right? And I think that is going to be the case. Now, people are talking, because we see Greninja, we see Lele, we know there are going to be certain Pokemon that are going to be banned. Will people play Chicken? Because now that we've had 2 seasons of banning, and we have some people coming back, and we've had mock ProPokeBowl, so people know how to they have practiced banning. Do you see someone playing Chicken with something like Greninja, or no matter what, if they're first pick or second pick or whatever, they're gonna ban it themselves in fear of, like, if you're not first pick, I wouldn't ban Greninja, for example, because I'd be like, I want to see who's gonna do it, and if no one does it, I'm scooping it up, no problem. Right? Do you think people would go that far to play it?
I mean, it's not just this one. It's always, like, if you're your first pick, obviously you're not going to ban Greninja. You leave that for somebody else. I guess being first would help then, but I feel like something like Greninja would get banned regardless. It just gives you kind of like a bit more freedom in terms of banning, where you kind of have to leave it for somebody else to do it, or else you'll get it. But it's not something that just applies to this season.
Well, of course.
It's just always like that, I think.
Now, but seeing Pool 1 here, because I know it might not necessarily be, like, ban-worthy in everyone's minds, but seeing multiple things that you would assume would get banned, how do you work that in? Like, let's say, for example, Greninja Lele are always targeted. Because I know that for a fact, Greninja Lele Toxapex are going to be heavily destroyed, right? I'm pretty sure nobody wants to play against it. They want to scoop it up with their first pick. How do you decide how much of that game you play? Because you can leave all 3 of those open, ban something else, right? Or ban if someone has found kind of a check to one of those 3 Pokemon, try and ban that instead. and force their hand. If you have 10 people and you know there's X number of threats, what is the limit to where you go, okay, I'm first ban Lele, for example, right? Or Toxapex or something like that, right?
I think if you're near the end, there's just no way you can gamble at all. Just because, let's say, 2 things are up, right? Even if you leave one up, you're near the end regardless. So even if one of the strong things gets left up, you're probably not going to get it anyway. So I feel like if you're near the end, you're more pressured to make those bans as opposed to, being near the front. I don't think there's very much pressure on people who pick first. But I mean, then again, people are probably just going to ban them regardless.
Yeah. I think it'll just kind of be like more of that gentleman's agreement of, none of us want to beat this. None of us want to play it. It'd be like seeing a Lando T in the draft. See a Lando T in draft, you go, you want to eat? Nah, me neither. Just ban it out because you don't care, right? And sometimes even doing that also doesn't reveal particular intentions. Like if you instantly, I wouldn't say you do this, but if your second pick or your second ban, for example, you ban Greninja, it doesn't necessarily mean it's like, oh, I don't want anyone to have Greninja. You just kind of go, I don't want you to see what I'm going for, and I'm perfectly comfortable with picking up anything that is left, right?
Yeah.
We've seen people in the past, because once you ban the OU, you have to ban the PU and U, right? Because that's just how it goes. For some people, they can just go, you know what? I know how to play against Clefable because I'm looking at something like the Escavalier, for example. So I'm going to ban something that would complement the Clefable so that I can try and get an advantage. Like, many people have actually come up with different ways. That's what I love about the drafting process. Some people have argued you should just do a ProPokeBowl draft. Like, just do the drafting, no battles, because so many people have fun building the teams on their own and how much complexity comes out. Like, literally, everyone has a different way of doing it. We haven't seen any standard, like, 1 offense, 2 defense, 1 offense, 2 defense sort of thing and built and clear and concise, because there's just been so many people that have seen the pools and what they want, and it just ends up getting in everyone's way. It's almost not premeditated by any means.
Yep.
So, but yeah, Pool 1's definitely going to be that. I'm going to be right back, but let's pull up Pool 2 here, because this is the one that I think needs a little bit more attention brought to because of the amount of variety in where you start.
Yeah, this one's pretty stacked. Is he gone? Yeah, he's gone. Yeah, Pool 2 is really good. PUNU sucks, but RU is really good. OU is really good. And then UU is better in Pool 2 also, I think. The only tier that isn't better, I think, would be PU. Or NU. Let's see.
I mean, this is actually a pool, because I never left, right? This is actually a pool where OU to NU doesn't worry me. It doesn't, right? There are so many good things on both ends of the spectrum. No matter what pick you go, I think you just keep getting power because there's so much in it. You don't actually lose anything here.
Strong. There's like, let me see. 1, 2, 3, like 6 maybe things that I'd pick from there.
And
compared to like
OU?
PU.
Oh.
Compared to like maybe 10 in Pool 1. OU is really good here though. It's like really stacked.
Yes, it is. There's a lot of, and the best part is it's not stacked in one particular role. There are multiple things in here, offensive and defensive and utility based, that are all in the same pool. So this is when you'll really start to look. This is when actually I think this is going to be the toughest for people in this season, because what happens in Pool 1, you're going to target what they're weak in and keep them weak, right? You're not going to let them, if they're lacking a defensive Pokemon, you're not going to let them have Sableye, for example, or Swampert, for example, or Bulu, right? Or Skarm, right? If they picked up Chansey, you're not going to let them take Skarm, for example. These are the types of things that you can actually think about if you're worried about a particular comp. Not because it's necessarily strong, you might not know how to play against it either, so you actually just want to shut it down. You have free reign because you can ban that, and all of a sudden, you know, I've got something on the other end that I can pick up and be perfectly comfortable with.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're ever going to prioritize something in OU, Pool 2 is definitely the pool to do it. There's a lot of things in there that can just be the core of your team and kind of like make your team offensive or defensive, like you said.
Yeah.
If you prioritize something in there, that's going to shape what your team looks like.
Exactly.
For Pool 2. Like, Sableye, for example, you probably aren't going to be running an offensive team. And then if you're running, like, I don't know, Salamence, you're not going to be running a defensive team.
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunities. See, even, you know what, like, to an extent, you can even just start building from here. And then trade for the power from Pool 2. Like, unfortunately, it did end up being randomized like this, so a lot of the power just kind of ended up on the far side. But with the trade pools happening, I almost feel like, you know, any UU or R, like you said, RU is really weak. Any RU that ends up in the trade pool afterwards, I can just go grab it. There's no way they're going to pick and ban as many, right? Because there's too many threats everywhere else to leave up. If I see something like Espeon and RU, I'm not going to pick it up until I actually need it, but if I see something like Entei and UU, I might actually really go for that if it complements my team or just even starts off an offensive core for me, right? Because it's just such a solid Pokemon. Let's say you miss the Infernape. Well, I can take Entei. It's a little bit different, but I can still do it with it, right? So,
yeah.
You could honestly build a team of 6 from this.
I think just because Pool 2 is so, like, strong, leaving a lot up might not even be a bad. It'll just come down to everybody getting at least one strong thing, and then it'll just come down to battling, and whoever the better battler is, then, like, I'd feel comfortable, like, if I were in this, I'd feel comfortable leaving really strong things up in Pool 2, and just getting one myself, and just going head-to-head, and just battle it out and see who the better battler is with the strong things.
And I think that works for, like you said, it works for the people who are better at battling. For those people who might not who might not know they're that strong, or might not know what the competition they're up against. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, right? Like, Mitch, Ivan, Damman drop, but if Damman was in, like, those are the two that are extremely experienced in ProPokeBowls, so they already know what they're looking for, and they've had tons of practice battling in Series of 2, with making substitutions, with preparing everything in advance. Like, they have all this practice, and results don't necessarily show it all the time, but just having that knowledge already gives them the upper hand in battling, because they know when they want to make that hidden power change, or they want to bring that one random move on a Pokemon to catch their opponent off guard, right? Most newer players, especially to a mixed OU tournament, will bring the standard Smogon sets, or bring standard sets that work, right? Without being able to understand that week by week, you could bring something to specifically answer your opponent if they can't answer it, right? That's Team Darkness with 135 teams, which is more than I think I've ever built in my career.
Yeah. I don't know about that guy, but yeah, I feel like even if there's something strong, I would still say go for comfort.
Yeah. Well, go for the strongest comfort pick, right?
Right. Like, but like, let's say somebody doesn't know how to use Greninja at all.
Yeah.
But it's left up for some reason.
In some way.
Let's say I didn't know how to use Greninja.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody took it. If I felt like I was a better battler than them, I'd be fine with them having it if I could get something like a Celebi that I'm comfortable with, and it's also a really strong pick. Obviously, I think Greninja is a better Pokemon, but if I feel like I'm the better battler,
exactly,
take the Celebi.
Yep.
So
and that's exactly what you can do week by week. You can assess and go, am I the better team, or am I the better battler? Because in the end, it's not determined by how strong your team looks, it's how strong your team actually plays out, and that comes down to your individual play. I mean, I showed in the mock ProPokeBowl that I did, I didn't pick up a single OU Pokemon, and I went 5-2, I think, or whatever. Like I was third or fourth, but I went with a 0 OU team, and there were a lot of picks in OU. But a lot of those Pokemon I've never really used, so I picked up Pokemon that I knew were solid. I had a Gliscor Vaporeon comp or something like that, like Gliscor Vaporeon Shiinotic, that's what it was. And I know how to play that comp and play that defensively and make it work, and I've used Shiinotic, I've used Vaporeon, I've used Gliscor, right? And I just pick it with offensive Pokemon, and all of a sudden, because I know how to build those guys and use them to their limits, I can succeed against those other Pokemon, most other Pokemon that were against me. So,
yeah.
And I also know my way to navigate around picks and bans. One, because I designed it, but two, also because I just understand the synergies that I can make the best out of both worlds. If I pick up a UU, I have to find the synergy that's an RU or NU, right? It's not an if and or, oh, maybe I could do OU PU. No, it's like if I know I can play a UU RU, I'm going to do that. The chances of it being sniped are less, maybe. And I know that if other people are focusing down and I go, well, that guy's got a lot of defensive mons, I'm perfectly safe with leaving that till later, because who's going to, I mean, you could use your last picks to snipe. Not in this season, because Pool 2 is going to be your team.
Yeah. And I think because Pool 2 has not as many good picks in PU and NU, you're kind of like forced to choose between one really good OU and a bad PU, or you could also just go for a good UU and a good RU, because Pool 2 has really good RUs. So it just matters more of like, do you want the really, really strong OU, or do you want a mixture of a good UU and RU?
Yeah. And that also, and the funny thing is, for a lot of people like who played in older gens too, we're not used to seeing Virizion and NU. So if we had something in mind that would go with a Pokemon like that, like even Xatu was an NU at one point, but Xatu has Magic Bounce. It has the ability to be defensive. It's actually mostly offensive now, I think, in the NU tier, but it has a lot of things. And when you're used to playing it with other Pokemon, it can kind of play to your advantage, because now you can start mixing it with other parts of your team that you would otherwise be inhibited because of tier usage, right? So, Azumarill, for example, is one of those Pokemon that's now in UU. It no longer takes up your slot to make you pick a PU-NU. All of a sudden, if you wanted Azumarill on your team to make use of it, it's a nice, strong Water Fairy type, now you have actually access to other, maybe more potentially stronger Pokemon in the RU tier. So, your team's not going to look the same built-wise. It can end up being the same, but it might just be using different Pokemon, or it might just be using, kind of like the budget version, if you will. Especially assuming certain Pokemon are just already going to be out of it,
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. I really want to see who's going to be. I'm kind of curious. There are a few things. There are a few Pokemon that I know were played in the past. Mantine being one of them. Tornadus T being another one of them. I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do, especially since things like Thundurus T or Thundurus itself, if it was in the meta, was banned for the longest time. And some of these Pokemon have come back down and have moved themselves. Mew was once in UU, believe it or not. Now it's in OU. Sableye, Mega Sableye obviously moved it up. But then you have other Pokemon like Klefki move into UU. Mienshao move into UU. You have Registeel being the RU flag at this point. But then you also have things like Sneasel, which now, because it's being recognized in the upper tiers, is now a pickable poke. And it's a nice budget Weavile. If those types of Pokemon are actually going to be playing on people's minds, because they allow for flexibility with finding your footing in this draft.
Yeah, it's just so weird, because people need to make their teams in Pool 2, and just use whatever they got in Pool 1 to kind of pack.
Is there kind of like barring silly things like, Hippowdon Pool 1, Excadrill Pool 2, are there any other natural synergies that you could see even set up from Pool 1? Like, is there anything you can actually really... Like, again, without telling a strat, can you even imagine a team being half complete from Pool 1? Because there's a lot of great Pokemon, whether or not they're going to be... Like, it's not to say you can't build a great team out of Pool 1, but you definitely are waiting for Pool 2 for the stronger finishing touches, right? Like, is there anything you can even start from Pool 1 to move on to Pool 2 with?
I mean, there's Pelipper and Swampert, but whenever somebody picks Pelipper, then they're not going to let that person get Swamp Kingdra. It's just not... It's just weird.
Yeah.
I think Paladon is a bit more flexible because it can be used without something that abuses sand. Like, I used it last time. I had Lycanroc eventually, like, later on, but for the most part, I didn't care about abusing sand. It's just something that I really... Mm-hmm. And Pelipper kind of isn't, like, a standalone good Pokemon. It's just good for rain and synergizing with something that abuses rain.
Yeah. So basically, what we've both come to kind of the conclusion is Pool 1 is the most flexible pokes, and then Pool 2 is the strong pokes. Because that's what literally we're seeing, is Pool 1...
I'd say for Pool 1, just pick very generic stuff that you know is good and doesn't have to be played a specific way. Just something that can be played in multiple ways and is just a solid, good, standard Pokemon.
Yeah. You're definitely not going to be... You're going to have to put a little bit of your thinking caps on to try and see if I'm picking up a Pokemon like Altaria in Pool 1, why would they pick up that Pokemon in particular when I don't see kind of a synergistic thing? Like, if I'm seeing 5 weird offensive Pokemon and no defensive core, what core could they be possibly going for in Pool 2? That type of thing. Like, I'm sure people wouldn't necessarily go for that unless that's what they're left with, but I think we could see a lot of... I think Pool 2 bans are going to be really interesting because... I feel like there's going to be a lot of targeting to shut down particular cores, and maybe this becomes a very offensive game. I don't see a lot of people playing stall, so maybe we see like a lot of bans towards the defensive pokes, like Sableye or Bulu or stuff like this, just because everybody's kind of relying on these Pool 1 sort of generic pokes, and you could pick up a defensive core in there. Not many, but maybe you just try and force your hand and try and get the more aggro team and win from that. I could see that happening. You know, ban out the Suicune Pool 1, ban out Sableye Pool 2 type of thing.
Yeah, in the past, people would just ban stuff in Pool 2 that would work well with something in Pool 1.
Yes.
But now it's just going to be like, well, you're just going to have to ban things that are strong or things that are just good against what you have so far.
Yeah.
Because... they're just going to be picking general stuff in Pool 1 if they're smart, so you can't really kind of target ban. Instead, just ban stuff that is good against your team or something that you plan on having.
Yeah. But, the other thing that I think can happen here is the person who does build from Pool 1 will have an enormous advantage. I think there's going to be I really think that people are going to come in with a particular plan. Once the pokes are banned, they're going to have to switch their plans, but the person whose plan is not interrupted the most will look incredible after the drafting night, because since it is kind of convoluted, because you're saying like we usually ban stuff in Pool 2 that would complement, but now we're going to be banning the strong, but we're talking about Pool 1 kind of being the weaker pool, so we're still technically banning things that would complement because you're complementing weakness with strength. So I think really you have to come out trying kind of the strongest in Pool 1 as much as you can, and then force those synergies. Because most times, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of balance. There's usually like shit and good in both tiers. But in this one, I don't know, because without talking too much about what's going to dominate, yeah, a lot of the power that you want to dominate probably going to be gone, which is going to leave the tier 2s or the tier 1.5s, whatever you want to call them. but then to support that, you kind of have to conceal that amongst the, the shite that you're picking up for the first 6. So it should be neat. I'm actually really looking forward to this. I think this is going to be the most strategic ProPokeBowl ever in terms of drafting, because everything is everywhere, right? Like, there's tons of Pokemon. Machamp is RU. Like, there's been Pokemon that have been moved left and right, and there's a lot new Pokemon in this, so it can get really nasty really quickly. But I like nasty and really quick. That sounds really weird without context. Anyways.
Whoa.
Anyways. Yes, Diggersby is OU because it's borderline, so it gets moved up. It's considered OU. So, just as a reminder, this will be starting tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be drafting probably around like 8:15. We're going to do a little bit of introduction. You do not need any of your banners or theme music yet. We will talk about the details for battling, the PokePace, and everything else. We'll deal with that tomorrow night. So please, after the draft, I encourage all of you to stay behind. One, so you don't have to watch the VOD and learn it again, but two, so that everyone can be on the same page. Keep in mind that you will be drafting, and then the first battles will be starting February 21st. That is still a Wednesday. It is always 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and they will always be every Wednesday unless otherwise stated in other nights. But if we replace it, it'll just be pushed to another Wednesday. So the ultimate goal is to never change from Wednesdays. Yeah, that's all we're going to talk about. That's as much as we can give. Thank you very much, Sweet D.
Wait, what are your predictions?
What are my...
Without knowing the teams yet.
Let's pull up... You know what? Let's pull up the participants list. And the only people I can really talk about... I'll go into more detail again talking tomorrow night with the actual draft. But the only people we can really predict or even like remotely analyze... Oxum, Ivan, World Leader, Doodle, and Mitch, right? Because Doodle played back in Season 2. And I think even Season 1. A little bit. Based on what I know about the players, Oxum is a very aggressive player. Mostly goes for reckless abandon. It sounds bad, but it's not. Because it mostly comes down to she drafts very well. Most times her follies will come to the battling. And I think with someone like Gamma or T4 working with her this season, there might be a lot more direction to her actual playstyle. So I'm actually looking forward to this little duo trio comp working together, because Gamma and T4 are both very good battlers, and so is Oxum. And I think them working together is actually going to be pretty good here. Ivan, a very, very unique player. He will pick up the good Pokemon and then surprise us in battles. So, generally speaking, Ivan is a very strong drafter. He has extensive knowledge in the actual pools. I don't expect him to fall behind in any way or come out with a weak team. He made a team in Season 2 that was like 7 Pokemon weak to rock, and the man was in the playoffs, and he won. So, it's like, he's the type of player where he will draft strong, and I do expect him to make it through this kind of weird Pool 1, Pool 2 synergy. World Leader... He plays what he wants. He doesn't have much prediction. He's a very much, I guess, for lack of a better word, free spirit when it comes to picking up his pokes, because you'll kind of force a roll onto a Pokemon. Shoutouts to Thunder Punch everything. But he will just build what he's given, which might work out here, because if he's given a weak pool into a stronger pool, he might come out with the pokes that he just knows he can play, even if it doesn't look that good. I do have good faith in his building from that. Doodle is a very defensive player. I know he likes stall quite a bit, but plays it quite well. He does not let himself necessarily get set up upon. He's always built a very strong defensive core for himself. And he is... in a sense, and this is going to sound insulting, he is in a sense like Ivan, where you can tilt them. You can actually play them into a corner and really get into their head. So the mental game is... I mean, it's true. It's public knowledge. We've seen the battles, right? The mental game is not on Doodle's side, right? So... it's not a bad thing per se. Like, we're not saying that people are ragers or whatever. They're very good battlers, but I do feel like Doodle is more prone in the draft to being cornered than someone like Ivan, because Ivan always drafts strong and always brings strong things. It's more the battles that tend to catch him off guard. I think for Doodle, because he's been out of it for quite some time, and now he's coming back with this, there might be a chance where he doesn't find that really strong core that he got back in Season 2 when there was no banning, and as a result, really suffer from that. So, yeah. And then Mitchie, he tends to draft. We kind of put Sweet D, Mitchie, and Lord Scrubbington on a trifecta sort of thing, where, like, Scrubbington is as balanced as you can get with a team comp. Diego is a little bit more on the defensive side, and then Mitchie is a little bit more on the offensive side when it comes to his drafts. But I expect him to also work through and try and pick up these really strong cores, because most of the time you'll see this 2-3 Pokemon core that's, you know, a Alomomola, Registeel, Dragalge. And it's just so difficult for most drafts if they're not ready for it to be able to take it on. It's kind of like when Damman used to use Mega Venusaur. Many people were just not ready for that draft. So I think he'll be fine with it. And he has a lot of practice with this stuff too, so I'm not too concerned with the draft.
What about the guy with 113 teams? I think like it's gonna be really good.
Darkness. From what I've seen, okay, we might as well talk about the rest. From what I've seen with the battles with other people, Project, Coma, Icy, Gamer, and Darkness seem to be quite good drafters. You tend to start seeing a little bit of differences in playstyles. I will give more credit to Darkness and Icy. They seem to be a little bit on the... I haven't seen much of Project play, but I have watched Icy and Darkness battle quite a bit. They seem to be not too bad when it comes to... Sorry, Gamer as well, my bad. I overlooked you by accident, because there's black stuff there. It seems like they grasp the metagame pretty decently. There are some questionable... I'm not going to call it which one, but there are some questionable team building decisions that are made sometimes. And we're not talking like Ivan team building, like where Ivan makes it work. It's almost like there's just a move that is chosen that doesn't make any sense or doesn't cover the correct thing. But in terms of drafting, most of these guys seem to draft very, very, very well. Project and Gamer usually come out with super strong drafts, so I'm curious to see what happens when they go up against veterans like Ivan and Mitchie, and even World Leader and stuff like that. There seems to be definitely something of a competition when it comes to at least getting the teams. So if we're going to see any difference, I think we're really going to see it in the battling, not so much the drafting. I do have confidence that everyone will come out with the draft that they want, for the most part. So.
I think... I don't know much about a lot of these new players.
Yeah.
I know Ox some, I know Evan, I know Leader. Doodle, sort of, I think I kind of remember, and I know Mitch.
He was the Klefki Chansey guy.
I think it'll come down between Mitch, I guess, Ivan afterwards. I think that's going to be a pretty good rivalry throughout the season. I know they've been kind of trash talking a little bit, so that should be fun.
Why? Good thing there's a mute opponent section.
And then I won't be playing, but I'll be helping Mitch out throughout the season too.
So what's your role with him? He says he's basically Rocky and you're his coach. So what is your role with helping out Mitchie?
I guess team building, the draft we've gone over it a little bit, look through the pools, but I'd say team building is probably going to be the biggest thing, and then kind of maybe helping him battle a bit. So he's going to go undefeated this season, not lose a single game, and he's going to win.
You've said that before, man. You've said that before.
Tyler and me aren't in it, so he has no excuse this time.
So what do I get to say what do I get to say if he doesn't win then?
Banned forever. I'm just zoning him, and I'm just never talk to him again. He has no excuse to not win this time.
I would actually like to see that, but I mean, he has a lot of trash talk. He's working. And by the way, guys, there is no rule against like co-coaches or helping each other when it comes to team building and stuff like that, because one, I can't prove it, so like there's no cause for sabotage. If you work with someone and they sabotage your team, that's on you, not on me. And like, you can have people helping you during the battles. The only thing that I please ask is that you don't make it obvious. Like I said, don't give advice in the actual frickin' battle while I'm sitting there and commentating. One, it's distracting, and two, it's like, let them play sort of thing. But, you know, if you want to be in a call helping each other out for the battles, go for it. It's a fun tournament, and one thing that we've always celebrated was just playing the showdown together, and Diego, myself, Tyler, and Mitch used to always just build teams together, just play on the ladder with the same team, or play against each other with teams that we build with. It was nothing like, I want to be the best at all my friends, per se. We just helped each other out, and that's what this is all about, so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I somewhat agree. Just looking at base facts and looking at previous seasons, from the people that have played Oxum, Ivan, World Leader, Doodle, Mitch, I would have to give it to Mitch. I think he's got the most experience. He like, just based on the fact he's played more, he drafts slightly above average versus everybody else. Like, you know, I'm talking like super strong versus almost super strong sort of thing. Not trying to like undermine his drafting ability, but I just really think that his amount of skill and knowledge of the game is really going to get him through. Yeah, totally, Mitch. But yeah, I do think it's heavily weighted towards him, but it doesn't mean that someone else can't rip him down from the throne, because we've said it before. We've looked at, like, you know, will Ivan make Season 3? Will Scrubbington hold on? We'll have to see in Season 5, I guess, when you and him jump in. But, you know, we've seen many good teams, or many poor teams, do a hell of a lot better than we expected. So, predictions are simply predictions. That's pretty much it. Hey, Gamer, it's happened. Oxum made 4th place. She went in as a brand noob. She went in as a grand noob and snuck in stuff like that, right? Ivan actually started, what seed was he? 5th in Season 2? I think he was 5th seed or 6th seed.
2nd.
Was he 2nd? Which one was he, 4th or 5th? Was that last season?
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Like, we've seen really good players go to lower seeds but still make it through, right? Like the seeding is just to get into the playoffs. But whether you're 1st or 6th seed, you're not going to try and plan out. 1st and 2nd seed get a bye, sure, but if you're in top 6, you're already looking comfortable. Plus, the playoffs play differently from the regular season, so your team just has to be good enough to make it into playoffs. And then if you know how to build your team one way to make it through 3 opponents or 2 opponents, whichever one happens to be, it doesn't matter. You're winning because your team is better at a core, not so much as how you can do it week by week, right? It changes strategies on how you play, and I've always liked it that way because it really shows a strength in a draft when it can be both adaptive but also just a solid foundation on its own. So yeah, you've also never been in the finals, Mitchie. So yeah, that's all I've got to say for tonight. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you tomorrow night. Everybody's hyped for this. I'm thoroughly looking forward to what's going to be going on tomorrow night, because this is just such an interesting pool, and I've heard already from coaches what they want to do, so I really want to see if they get away with it, not knowing what the other coaches are going to try and answer with and stuff like that. So thank you very much for coming out, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, for the start of the ProPokeBowl Season 4. Thank you much, Sweet D. See you tomorrow.
All right.
Peace.